what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
When Hurricane Helene swept into Florida September 26th and then into the Carolinas, millions of people lost water and power service. Others lost everything in landslides and floods that washed away roads, severed lines of communication, and cut off the lifelines to civilization for rural mountain people. Rescue, relief, recovery efforts, they rushed into the region, and stories of heroism and hope quickly emerged. Neighbors across North Carolina and the entire Southeast committed themselves to being part of the solution. And one of those people working hard on those front lines of rescue and relief is Ben Hooper, a member of the fire service and the operator of Ben's Backdraft BBQ, which is based in Waynesville, a town sitting just west of some of those areas hardest hit by Helene and all that rain. Ben, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we're really excited to welcome you back again on the Low and Slow Barbecue Show to talk about your experience and how you've been helping, some of the things that you've been seeing during the past few weeks since that storm. A quick introduction, an invitation rather, to visit our audience. Everybody visit us at lowslowbbqshow.com. You can read recent blogs and subscribe to our barbecue newsletter, The Lowdown. It's lowslowbbqshow.com. You can also find a library of our podcast interviews with barbecue pit people and pit masters all across the Carolinas. That includes our conversation with Ben and his business, Ben's Backdraft Barbecue. We learned all about the background of his barbecue business, but again, today we're going to talk with him a little bit about how that business has fared in the wake of all that mess and catastrophe in the Carolinas. So, Ben, I'll just kind of let everybody know we're recording this on October the 23rd, so it's here about a month after the storm. Tell me a little bit about the state of everything in your business where you are today.
Yeah, so we lie kind of right between, we're actually at a brand new location we just debuted this year. Again, we have, obviously 2 food trailers that we operate out of, and then a concrete building that serves as our commissary. And where that lays is right directly in between Maggie Valley, North Carolina, and Waynesville, North Carolina. So we're right on US 19, one of the major highways going into Maggie Valley, Cherokee area. So if you've ever went to the Cherokee Casino, you've probably traveled on the road where our building lays. So that's kind of where we're at in the geolocation of everything. And I kind of feel like we're right on that western portion of where the storm hit. So, and in saying that, we were 3 inches away from getting flooded here at our building.
Wow.
Or let's just say a couple inches away from getting flooded. We have a very small stream behind our building here, and the water rose about 20 feet from where it lays normally. It's normally about a little stream that's about 2 feet wide, and it rose up and actually came into our parking lot and almost got in the building, and it was almost like there was this little circle that was around our stuff, and we were salvaged by the grace of God is all I can say. That's the only thing that I can explain.
Definitely a blessing. Yeah, for sure. So tell me, kind of, I want to talk a little bit about what you got going on right now and what's coming up here in the early part of November. But give me a little bit of an understanding of what the relief and the recovery conditions are like again in those sort of the harder hit areas, because I know you're into the Asheville area and into the Buncombe County and that in some of your meal service now. So first, just tell me about the status of things there and how things look and how recovery is coming along.
Yeah, so there's a really good resource on several social medias that have a list of towns that are open. So if you're looking to come to Western North Carolina, there are towns here in Western North Carolina that are accepting visitors, and they want you more than ever now to come visit because they've been hurting for the past 3 weeks. A simple example of those towns are, Silva, Cherokee, Waynesville, essentially anything west of Waynesville is semi-okay. I don't want to speak for all of the western part of North Carolina, but it kind of seems that is where the storm started to slow down, it looks like, where it started to dump the heaviest amount of rain. And there are some extremely hard hit areas, and a list of those are, Asheville obviously got hit really hard. Burnsville, Black Mountain, Swannanoa, Spruce Pine. Those towns are not open, and it's going to be a huge effort to even get those towns to the point of being able to operate on a normal schedule for the normal residents. So just please be mindful of that. Anyway, we served as kind of a hub here in Waynesville. We lost power for about 2 hours after the storm, which was in the grand scheme of things was actually really good. In my personal residence, we lost power for about a week. Even on that side, we were really lucky. We live on a hill. We were very, very lucky. So Waynesville did get hit pretty hard with flooding. Waynesville itself didn't get hit as bad with mudslides, but there were a couple towns here in Haywood County that got hit with mudslides. One example is Maggie Valley. There were several mudslides in the surrounding areas. But yeah, that's kind of the grand scheme of things of how it went in Waynesville. There's some pretty severe flooding. Whenever you get a little bit east of here into Buncombe and Yancey counties, there was not only the factor of the storm flooding and dumping, up in the high teens, low 20s area of inches of rain. And then also with that was a lot of mudslides. And from what I hear, there was possibly even a couple really low grade tornadoes that may have hit, like in Black Mountain area. And, all of that is still not even out.
Right. There was one in Bowling Rock for sure.
Yeah.
That was reported.
So there's several, cases like that, several stories. But I will tell you one thing. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else in the world. That's for sure. I've not seen a community gather together like this and surround things and come together, as one, community to help each other any time before more than this, which has been really great.
And I want to talk a little bit more about that. Before we do, I want to talk about, again, the current community stuff that you've got going on. I know you've got some events kind of on the schedule in the last week of October, but maybe look into November and tell me what's coming up there that folks will be able to listen to and get in and be involved in.
Yeah, so a kind of a big event we got coming up is on November 2nd. We're attending as part of there's a couple different ways that the money's going there, but it's called Haywood Heroes. Here in Haywood County, we've got a couple departments that need some equipment, and the Clyde Fire Department specifically actually got flooded in Haywood County. And that's the first time that department's ever flooded before. Even when Ivan and Francis hit in 2004, Hurricane Fred hit in 2021, it's never had water in the station, and it did get water this time. Wow. So this is benefiting Clyde and Waynesville fire departments. And then it's also benefiting one other nonprofit organization that comes out of the Frog Level community based here in Waynesville. So that's the nonprofit that's kind of running everything. And me and one other food truck is just kind of assisting. And there's a possibility of some other folks being able to come. We just don't know about the schedules just yet. But the event is happening November 2nd at Axe and All Leather Works in Waynesville off of Depot Street. And I expect, a really good turnout since this is something that's good for the community. We just got out of the Waynesville Apple Festival, and that was a huge record number turnout.
Wow.
Which was the first normal event since the storm.
Yeah.
As well as end of September, beginning of October. That's our festival season here in Western North Carolina. And all the events in Western North Carolina were canceled. All the big hitters for us were canceled until the Apple Festival in Waynesville, and it was a huge success for us.
Okay.
Pumpkin Fest in Franklin was also a huge success for us. And again, Franklin is one of those towns that are accepting visitors. So I highly advise people to come check those out, shop local if you can. I've talked to a ton of businesses, especially here in Waynesville, that rely on that tourism, business. And there are unfortunately going to be some businesses that will not come out of this. Even though they didn't get hit by flooding or the storm, there is going to be the economical impact that's going to happen to those businesses, and some of that is yet to come. I feel like some of the darker days are upon us in that business world, but we've linked up with a few people that it sounds like that we're going to be okay. Talking about as far as our business goes, so that we just kind of adjusted our operation a little bit, and we've kind of changed focus on who our target audience is, if you will.
Okay, let's talk about that here just a little more. Obviously, as you mentioned, just kind of recap what you said. It's peak leaf season around this part of the Carolinas, and certainly in your area, this is the time when everybody traditionally ride the Blue Ridge Parkway and visit all those festivals, really from Boone and the high country around West Jefferson all the way down into Cherokee and that part of the state. Always definitely dependent on that tourism. So it's great to hear, like you mentioned, Dillsboro and Waynesville and Franklin and Cashers and Highlands and all those places out west that traditionally are relying on your tourism definitely need it more than ever. So I know that that's a great way for folks to respond as they can support, as they have been so neighborly during all this disaster time. I know that you've spoke about there, but Ben, tell me a little bit about how you've responded to that. And let's go back to what you were saying, how your business is adjusting to that. But then, after that, I want to get into some of the relief efforts that you've been part of. So how have you guys adjusted, since this curveball has been thrown to all the Carolinas?
Yeah, so I kind of went into it as the mindset of the Waffle House method, is what I call it.
Okay.
Waffle House never closes.
Right.
It's one of those places, in Florida, they look at Waffle House, they don't watch the weather. If Waffle House closes, they probably get out of the area.
Sure.
And to be honest with you, I don't even know if Waffle House here ever closed. I would assume they did, because we didn't have power in certain places for several days. But nonetheless, Thursday before the storm, we were one of the only places that was open, and we had a line for probably 6 hours here, which is very abnormal. We did about 600% more business on that Thursday just because we were open.
And this was before the storm even hit.
Before the storm, it was raining. Right. We got some precursor rain for 2 or 3 days, which totaled up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 inches of rain in 3 days. So we were, it wasn't flooding yet, but the storm was not here yet. So I had the mindset, I was like, okay, well, we're going to stay open for people. I started a post on our social medias asking people if they would like to pay for first responder meals, because I know we had a ton of first responders in the area, and to be quite frankly with you, I felt really bad about this storm. I had a bad feeling about this, so I knew there would be a ton of first responders in the area. So what we did was we put out our Venmo on social medias, and if people wanted to, we put it our Venmo, and then we also put out a post. If you would be interested in buying a first responder meal, message us, call us, text us. We'll send you an invoice for $12. And what that'll do is that'll cover a first responder meal, a protein and 2 sides and a drink, whatever we're carrying that day. And their meal is covered. In the past, we've always given a hefty discount on first responder meals. And to be honest with you, probably a little bit too much sometimes, but that's obviously the era that I come from. So, I always know how it is as a first responder. It's really expensive to eat out all the time. So I wanted to create some kind of fundraiser, if you want to call it that, to pay for first responder meals. And we ended up getting about 150 or so first responder meals donated before the storm ever hit. Wow. So that was great. Circle into Friday morning, Thursday night. I went into Waynesville Fire Department. I'm still part-time there as a part-time firefighter. I still work there, and I still work at a little department called Woodfin in North Asheville. So I went into Waynesville. I knew I'd be there for probably several days. So I went in Thursday night. They upstaffed, obviously, with the storm coming. We put together a little boat team and a swiftwater team of 4 personnel. and I manned that for about 3.5 days,
Wow.
Thursday night
Yeah.
to Sunday. And I helped man that until Sunday. I could have stayed longer, and they upstaffed for longer, and they needed the help longer. But I also knew that my team needed my help here, after that. So going into Friday morning, about 3 a.m., we get our first call for a water rescue or evacuation. I forgot what was first. We suit up, get in our equipment, get in our boats, all hooked up and everything. And we go right into starting to evacuate folks in the lower lying areas of Waynesville. And we continued to be in the vehicle in our equipment for about 13 to 14 hours.
Wow. Holy cow.
So it didn't quit raining until around lunch on Waynesville. And we got some pretty significant flooding. Our team was responsible for, let's see, one swiftwater rescue in the Allens Creek community, and we had the help of the Raleigh Fire Department Task Force 8. They helped us set up a high line and get some folks out off of one of the adjoining roads that follows Allens Creek. And then obviously the calls started really ringing in at that time period, and that was about 5 a.m. I guess. And then in the whole western region, at one point, there was not enough rescuers as there was calls.
Yeah.
Which is a very not a very hopeful feeling.
That's scary. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. After that rescue went through, very first thing, I lost my radio that we communicate with. It went into the water.
Oh.
We got those folks out. I get back to the truck after that rescue. We're headed to another rescue. I'm sitting in the back seat. I try to make a phone call. There's no communication. Zero. No cell service. No phone lines were working. And at one point, some of our radio communication systems were even having a hard time. Luckily, we're on a pretty old system here in Haywood County, and it's an analog system, so we still had some radio communications. But that was the only way that we could communicate. Where I felt really not really well was I couldn't get a hold of my family, and I knew that their plan was to come in and work. I said, we're going to be open when everybody else is closed. But whenever we started getting out and about in the area in Waynesville, at one point there were certain parts of Waynesville that we couldn't even get to. So, I knew I needed to get a hold of my family personally somehow. Luckily, the phone service was working just enough that I got a hold of one of my employees. I told her, I said, go straight to my house, make sure my wife hasn't left. Got a hold of her later after another call, and my wife had already left. So I was like, oh my goodness. So we're out here doing all these, trying to evacuate all these people and get these people out of water. And it's just kind of, it's a very odd feeling because I have no idea like where my family's at and what's going on. Luckily, somehow the phone service worked just good enough to where the employee that I did call, Ashley is her name, that works for us. She did in fact get in touch with my wife, and finally I found out that they were safe. So that was a good feeling, and I could kind of fully focus back on the rescue world of the fire service. So we, did several water rescues up until a little bit after lunch. Around 2 p.m. the water started receding, and then we started finding the other damages that were going on. There's a ton of other hazards and such that go with that as well. And I knew, with water being that bad in Waynesville, because something special about Haywood County is, Haywood County waterways, all the headwaters start in Haywood County. So we have no water coming into Haywood County. So all the streams and rivers in Haywood County in relation are fairly small. So I knew whenever it flooded this bad in Waynesville that other areas were going to be completely devastated.
Right.
I didn't have to see the news or anything like that to know that. So I knew that. One of the only places that had internet was Waynesville Fire Department. We never lost our phone line there for some reason, and we never lost our internet. So I did have a little bit of communication with outside, what I call the outside world at that point, to kind of let them know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I did put a post out on our business page at one point that said, be really careful, pray for us. This is really bad. This is much worse than anything, than people really realize. So anyway, we go through several more days of figuring out what's going on and the damage and kind of investigation. And then we get into Sunday and we kind of go back into, and this whole time we kind of back up a little bit to Friday. My team, my wife and one of our employees did open at my business while I was at the fire department. So on Friday evening and Saturday and Sunday, we transitioned over to giving out free meals. And we ran out of food on Friday. So I didn't have anything to cook. I didn't have any way to get any product. I didn't have any communication with anybody. And kind of went, I was in the dark a little bit because I was like, I don't know, gas was being short. So I didn't really know what to do, where to get anything. So when I got back to the station at one point, I got a hold of TMG Pits in Knoxville to ask them how bad it was over there. And they were willing to, I called out for help to them. I said, we need help. Grocery stores are going to run out of food. We're going to run out of, there's going to be places run out of gas. We just need a little bit of help getting some food here. And they rounded up about $4,000 in donated, food and took some money that was donated. They brought me about $4,000 worth of food, and it took them 7 hours to get here on Saturday from TMG Pits in Knoxville. Because if for people that don't know, Interstate 40 was washed out at the state line. So they came through the towns of Newport, Hot Springs, and came down into the Crabtree Fines Creek area to get into Haywood County.
Okay.
And it took them 7 hours.
And normally that's an hour trip or so, right?
Yeah, an hour and a half max. It took them 7 hours. They brought me food, ate supper, turned right back around and went back home. Didn't ask for a dime, wouldn't take any money. And I asked them, I was like, well, what do you want pictures? They're just like, just make sure it gets to the people, that need it. So we continued to hand out food, and we got, there was people coming up that were willing to pay, and I told them just to pay whatever they wanted to. And we would put that pot into the next day. I go into my church on Sunday and kind of tell them what's going on from the first responder standpoint, and kind of tell them what's going on because there was no communication from the county or emergency management at this point. People showed up to church like it was, they knew that it was a devastating storm. They didn't know how bad. There was no communication other than, whoever had, maybe some kind of antenna radio, battery operated radio, or some kind of antenna TV. If that was working, I don't know. And some places, operation centers, were working off of Starlinks. And, there's a bunch of numbers on how many people didn't have power and this, that, and the other. So we continued to give out food until essentially we ran out of money throughout the week. And then we hooked up with, I was in contact with Operation Barbecue Relief. They were trying to get me some stuff. But as well as Waynesville wasn't really hit as bad as some other areas. So I think they ended up in Asheville and Hendersonville.
Yep.
So that was one contact that I had, and I did reach out to World Central Kitchen at one point, and I think they ended up going to the casino. But that's a couple organizations that I did reach out to, and there were many reasons why it didn't work out to get them here at my location, but they've been doing a phenomenal job handing out hot meals. And I reached out to Lewis Donald from Sweet Lou's. He also reached out. He got me some product from Inland Seafood. They got me some chicken stock and a bunch of burgers donated. And then there's been a ton of money that's been donated to us, probably totaling up towards the $10,000 mark or so that's been donated strictly just to us, on top of the donated food. And I would say we're well into the thousands of meals donated. I have no idea. I wasn't really keeping track. And we've been in Waynesville, we've been in Asheville, Black Mountain, we've been in Burnsville for a couple days, and it sounds like we may be going back to the Burnsville area to hand out some free meals, working with the U.S. Veterans Corps, because he's still in contact with some of those people. So, and we jumped back into a little bit normal schedule a couple weeks after the storm. We gave out food for about a couple weeks, just strictly giving out food. And then we kind of adjusted a little bit because, obviously we got to get cash flow coming back in somehow.
Because how many people are you guys employing? How many folks are you guys doing this with?
Yeah, so we got one full-time. Me, myself, I'm full-time as well in the business. And then we got about four part-timers as well that rely on us. So, and there's some of the part-timers, this is their only job. And some of the people that work for us, their full-time jobs needed them and some of them didn't, So, we've just been kind of using wherever we can get them. There were some people that volunteered from my church that came in and volunteered. So anyway, we got into a couple weeks later, and we kind of try to figure out what normal looks like again.
Right.
About a week after the storm, Duke Power in Haywood County got a hold of us, and they had about 500 contractors in the area that needed to be fed 2 meals a day. And that's a paying job.
Yeah.
So
and that's a lot of work too.
It was, but there were some aspects that I didn't think about. Because at that time period, there was still a little bit of scarcity with gas. Well, one of our mobile food units it's a gasoline generator. So I was like, well, I don't know where I can get 5 gallons of gas a day to operate. So I worked with Haywood County Schools, and they put in a 50 amp plug at Tuscola High School, and that was one place where they could get the big trucks in and out. So we fed them for about a week at Tuscola High School. So we had one trailer that was feeding Duke Power. The other trailer was giving out free food. And the free food slowed down pretty significantly after about that first week. And once we got past that first week into the second week, then gas started coming back in. Grocery stores started getting food in again. And things were looking up. Because I expected us not to be able to get gas or food into grocery stores for a while, because I knew 26 was closed, 40 was closed in both directions, and the only way here was through Atlanta on a major highway. So I was like, man, this is going to take forever to fix. And luckily, they got 40 East open pretty quick, and then 26 from South Carolina was open pretty quick as well. I don't know if it ever closed actually. Other than tree downs and such like that. So we went back into a little bit of a normal business area. The city of Asheville got us to cater for a few departments because they didn't have running water. That we fed the water department, and then we fed the whole fire department that was working one day. And those were about 300 meals a piece that we did receive a little bit of compensation for. And then after that, we had to go out and find business. So to be honest with you, it's a little bit of a blur of what happened.
No doubt.
But we would open here at our building, and we would, find other areas that wanted hot food, and working with the U.S. Veterans Corps too, because he would pay us to go give out free meals. And kind of the way it would work is he would give us $1,000, and we would feed as many people as we could with that money, along with trying to keep ourselves up. And that's kind of how that was working. And that was a huge break for us. Cause I didn't really know where our business was headed. And then, a couple weeks later, the second weekend in October, Church Street Festival cancels as well. So they have, the last weekend in September, the first weekend in October, and the second weekend in October, all the events are canceled. And I fully expected Apple Festival to cancel too, but they did have it.
Right.
And this past week was actually like the first normal week that we had. So, Mission Hospital also got a hold of us. We did a paying job there. We fed hospital employees a value meal. We came up with a meal that cost about $9.50 for 7 days in a row, and we ended up feeding approximately about 1,000 meals at the hospital over 7 days.
Wow.
So that was a pretty good little gig too.
Yeah.
And then this week we're back to normal. We're back to our normal schedule. We've got some events coming up, and like I said, on the 2nd, we got that coming up too. So that's kind of an overview. I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff, but that's,
but like you said, it's a blur for sure. And it definitely appreciates you sharing that, that testimony and that narrative with us. It's eye opening, and it really provides some clarity from somebody, who was there and experienced all that. And you kind of touched on this and in the early going about, people helping one another and seeing the best in our humanity out there in the community. So, maybe is there another example or an idea, or tell me something you've seen that gave you a little bit of faith that, hey, we might be all right on this planet in spite of everything else. We're all kind of coming together in a good way at a good time.
Yeah. So in the barbecue world, I feel like barbecue places are built different. Barbecue joints have a different mindset, and the people that come to mind are Lewis Donald from Sweet Lou's, Garen from John G's brought me wood and gas. And TMG Pitts came from Knoxville to help one of the small fish like myself. And I don't know if they know this or not, but how far that goes in my book. Like, to me, for Lewis Donald and Garen Kirkman to come up here for somebody that's just, 2 food trailers and it's, I'm not saying like a nobody, but like how small we are compared to who they are, like that really meant a lot that they would take time out of their day and drive up here and get me product and go out of their way because they're having their own issues because of the storm as well. I'm sure they had some economical impact as well. So that was very, very encouraging. And then also to see how many people that would wait in our line for food and they just take whatever we had. There was at one point we had, pork and to-go boxes was it. We couldn't get anything else. We got a Cisco order on that Monday after the storm, and that's all they had was pork butts and to-go boxes. But we took it. It was what we could get.
Sure.
And there were so many people that would give donations or that would tell me their story of losing everything and or they'd been without power. We were in Burnsville, 2 weeks after the storm, and our meals were the first hot meals that they've had in 2 weeks. And I'm not saying they didn't have food, but there were no restaurants in town open because the municipal water supply was out. And then the same thing as in Asheville is the municipal water supply is still not functioning correctly a month later. And that's a big deal.
It's significant
as far as
sure.
as an economical impact because all these restaurants and stores are still not open. But to see how people's attitudes are after this, knowing all the struggles and there's literally people that will give you the shirt off of their back and they've lost everything is just, I don't want to live anywhere else ever. Never.
Absolutely. So tell us, Ben, what can folks do? I want you to give us your Venmo address so that we can get it out there. But what can folks do now to continue providing that ongoing support in the community? Give me some organizations. We obviously want to visit tourism, but tell us what folks can do to continue to provide support for this place we all want to continue to love and live in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give a few organizations that I've seen firsthand out there in the streets doing, God's work, as I call it.
Right. Yeah.
Operation Barbecue Relief has been giving out thousands of meals per day. World Central Kitchen has been giving out thousands of meals a day. Samaritan's Purse has been giving out, there's no telling how many generators they've given out. I mean, like good generators too.
Yeah.
They give out generators. They give out the fuel can. Like literally the only thing you have to do is purchase gas, or they'll give you a full propane cylinder to operate it with. And they've even provided a solar generator too. So Samaritan's Purse is a huge one that's been giving out stuff too. There's a emergency RV supply. I can't think of the exact name, but it's emergency RV. They've been giving out used or slightly used campers and RVs to folks that have lost everything. Calvary Road Baptist Church has been giving out. That's my church. They've been giving out monetary, donations to people that have lost everything, food, supplies, and they're actually hooked up with one organization right now. I don't know the name of it, but they're going to build about 20 tiny home structures on people's property that have lost everything for temporary housing.
Yeah, wow.
And then my personal Venmo, I'll have to pull it up real quick. I'll tell you what it is real quick. But the biggest three organizations that I've seen really like that's just really blown me away was Samaritan's Purse, Operation Barbecue Relief, and World Central Kitchen. And my Venmo is Ben-Hooper-0, and it has our company logo in the middle of it.
Excellent. And folks can get details at bensbackdraftbarbecue.com. That's where your home of the website is. And I see down here, I scroll down towards the bottom, and I see your weekly food trailer schedule. So if we want to find you in November, we'll get the details there. And then, of course, your Instagram as well, Ben's Backdraft BBQ #1, Ben's Backdraft BBQ #1. You've had a lot of great videos. I wonder, how is that presence on Instagram, kind of been part of your journey in both raising some support and awareness, during the course of this event. So, let me know some details there, and then we'll wrap it up. You've given us so much of your time already.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we haven't made a huge presence on Instagram before, but kind of, and I noticed that, and I noticed there was a lot of interaction on Instagram as well. So any video that I've been recording or updates, posts, whatever, we've been putting that on Instagram along with on Facebook. But there's been people from all over the country contacting us. There was a group out of Atlanta that contacted us just because they seen one of our posts, and they're bringing tractor and trailers worth of stuff up here, which is just, it blows my mind that people, yesterday there was 2 people that sent us checks that trust us enough to go out and give it to the people that really need it. And we're going to try to do something super special around Thanksgiving time period to either, we're going to run a special for people that can, it's going to be a link on our website that's coming up. I've got a guy working on it right now where people can buy their turkeys, whole Boston butts, whole briskets, whole racks of ribs, and then they can also donate a turkey to a family that needs it. And then I also want to do something super special for a firefighter family of mine from Asheville that did lose their house in all of this. We're going to try to do some type of fundraising organization for them. They do have insurance, but there's going to be things that cost money because they also had a landslide as well that's not covered. So we're going to do something for them. Very special coming up soon. We just don't know what yet, so I don't want to announce that.
Understand.
But yeah, that's what we're doing and what our focus is now. We're going to try to get back to normal, do some Christmas parties. If you want us to cater your Christmas party, call us, email us, get on the website, all that jazz.
Hey, Ben, that's great. Thanks so much again. And thanks for sharing that time with us. Again, it's bensbackdraftbbq.com, or find him on Instagram at bensbackdraftbbq #1. Thanks so much for taking this time with us and sharing your story, Ben.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show on the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Be sure to visit us online at lowslowbbqshow.com. That's where you'll find the blog and you can hear other podcast episodes. Of course, if you like what you hear, please give us that 5-star rating. And hey, share the blog and the email and definitely our podcast with your friends. And we want to have folks hear Ben's story as well as the story of all of our other pit masters. You can find us on YouTube as well. It's the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. We've got videos there of all of our interviews. Remember, visit it all, lowslowbbqshow.com, and subscribe to the Lowdown newsletter. We'll send you the latest podcasts, blogs, recipes. When Ben's got his big barbecue event coming, we'll promote it in the Lowdown, so just look for it there in your inbox on Tuesday morning. Special thanks to our guest, Ben, from Ben's Backdraft Barbecue. Thanks as well to our producer, Andrew Moose, and the whole team at the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Most especially, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.